Welcome students to this video tutorial. The purpose of this tutorial is to show you how you can identify literary devices quickly and easily within the 8-hour exam. So this is something that all students struggle with. It really is a skill that you need to develop and it takes a lot of practice. But I want to show you a really useful hack that has helped all my students in being able to identify literary devices quickly and easily for themselves. The reason why it is so important to be able to do this is because time is everything. In your exam, you have 20 to 30 minutes planning that you need to be able to get down to a fine art so that you can plan everything you need to plan within that time frame. Identifying literary devices will be a part of that planning process. So once your planning is done, you can just get on and write that essay. At no stage do you want to start breaking out into a sweat literally in the middle of your exam because you can't find any literary devices in your quotes. So this process will hopefully stop that from happening. The other reason it is so important is because it's a key criteria of the ISMGs. So you need to be able to identify literary devices within all of your quotes and analyze how they position the reader in order for you to score those marks. Now, this tutorial is based on finding literary devices within your text. So you need to know what a paradox is, what foreshadowing is. That is something you are going to need to have a firm grip on already in order for this tutorial to be of benefit for you. So at this point, it is assumed knowledge. Now, there are two steps to being able to identify literary devices quickly and easily. Step 1 involves you listing all the important literary devices. So you need to memorize these and be able to recall them quickly and write them down. Step 2 involves you finding your devices, and that is either through a process of elimination or a process of identification. So we're going to have a look at what those processes involve now. So step 1 of our process is listing all our literary devices. We write down all our literary devices at the top of our page. So you want to be remembering as many of these as you can, writing them down, and then we're going to use this as our checklist. So that's it for step 1. Step 2 is using our literary device checklist as a way of finding the devices within the text itself. So what we do is we work our way through each line of the passage of the text and try to identify whether or not it is a paradox. So here we've got paradox as our first device, rhetorical question, connotations, etc. Is this first line of the passage a paradox? No. Is the second line of the text a paradox? No. Is this third line an example of paradox? No. And we work our way through each of the lines of the text until we come to an example of a line which we know is an example of paradox. And it's this one here. They have made themselves and that their fitness now does unmake you. So that is an example of a paradox. Then we move on to the second literary device, the rhetorical question. Is the first line an example of rhetorical question? No. Is the second line an example of rhetorical question? Yes, it is. It is an example of rhetorical question, so we can annotate that on our text. And so on and so forth. So we can see that the first line is an example of connotations, and the fourth line we've got here as juxtaposition. That is the process of elimination, where we're going through the list of devices and trying to find them one by one. The other way you can do it is a process of identification, and that's where you go through the lines of the text and then try to find the corresponding device that matches with it. So if we look at the line, and to be more than what you were, you would be so much more the man. Is that a paradox? No. Is it rhetorical question? No. Is it connotations? No. Is it hyperbole? Yes. We can note that that is an example of hyperbole. Then you look at each of the other lines within the text and do the same thing. So, how tender 'tis to love the babe that milks me. Is that a paradox? No. Rhetorical question? No. Connotations? Yes. And then our subsequent examples here we have graphic imagery and juxtaposition and pronouns and juxtaposition. And I want to make a special note about this. So with some of these examples here, we could probably use other devices as well within it, and that is to be expected, that there will be more than one literary device that you can find within each example. The important thing is that you are finding the best example. So you want to use the best example and the strongest example on how it positions the reader. The other thing to consider is, can you actually use more than one device as part of your analysis? Now, this example here, we have graphic imagery and juxtaposition. That is actually really important to use together as part of the analysis here of Lady Macbeth. The coupling of while it was smiling in my face and dashed the brains out is important here in drawing out the contrast of the innocence of the baby and the inhuman actions of Lady Macbeth itself. So you want to be using both of those devices together, and that's what I call corroborating literary devices. That gives your analysis so much more depth and insight and allows you to explore that in a lot more detail. Similarly, the final line here, had I so sworn as you have done to this, the use of the pronouns and the juxtaposition here as well. You want to be talking about both of those things simultaneously. So they're the two steps that you need to do. First, list all your devices, and then it's up to you which way you do it. Go through the devices and try and find them within the text, or go through the text line by line and find the corresponding device that works with it. Now, this is a great example of what you will probably do as part of your exam preparation and understanding your text in a lot more detail. Chances are you're probably not going to remember this entire monologue off the top of your head in exam conditions. If you do, high five to you. This is probably more what you're going to have when you go into the exam. So first thing you do as part of your planning process, as we've said, you write down your literary devices on your page. And then as you're planning your paragraphs, and as part of that process, you will have identified your 3 pieces of evidence per paragraph that you are going to be using to illustrate your topic sentence. And then you do the exact same thing. So it's a lot easier because you only have the one sentence, and it makes it, I guess, a lot more simpler here just to look at that sentence and then go, is that paradox? Is it a rhetorical question? Is it imagery, hyperbole? And work your way through the list. Then you'll do the same thing for your second quote and your third quote within your first paragraph. Now, this is one paragraph. You are going to have 3 paragraphs with at least 3 quotes within each one of those. So that's a total of 9 quotations. I say you should be aiming for 9 to 12 pieces of evidence within your entire essay. You definitely want to be identifying the devices very quickly and very easily within your exam. So this is such a great tool and method to use so that it keeps you focused, it minimizes your stress, and it literally is a checklist that you can work your way through and simplify the whole process of identifying devices. So that is it, my dear students. That is how you identify literary devices quickly and easily for your ATAR exam. So you need to make sure you have those definitions of your literary devices clear first. So make sure you know what a paradox is, foreshadowing, irony, hyperbole. If you looked at that list and you didn't know what any of those devices were, you're probably going to have to go back and do some more solid studying there first before you start trying to actually identify them within quotations or passages from your novel. Okay, so just remember, step 1, list your devices, and then step 2, either process of elimination or process of identification in finding your devices within your text. Good luck, and I hope you found this tutorial useful. I'll see you in the next one.